you don't figure out what you're all about till you figure out how you handle the bad stuff. Not, you can let it take you down. And I just refuse to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I would have to go back to is that he is a different person now than what he was before. There is a softer side to him than ever before.
You don't have to be happy to have joy. You can be in struggle and be joyful. Happiness is kind of a bonus, but it's not nearly as important as joy. And so when things are not going well and you show gratitude and you're grateful for something, you can have joy in that moment and take the things that you learn and run with it. Wake up and have a conversation with God and be grateful. Start your day being grateful. Because they're all, like I said, they're all bonus days for me. So I have gratitude just for the day.
Hi, and welcome to Unlocking the Miracles Within with your host here, Jeffrey McDonald. This is episode 9, and it's about miracles in everyday life. Basically, miracles through challenges in everyday life. And when this show came through, as you all know, these shows are inspired by spirit. The first 2 lighted beings that came into my mind were, and thankfully they said yes to be on the show, but I have Melissa and Chris Pollard, 2 amazing individuals. Chris and Melissa are the owners of Clarity Windows and Doors, and have been around quite a while, I think since 2002, and that's kind of I think probably Chris's everyday job. And then Melissa has done quite a bit outside of that. She's also an energy healer, a life coach, also a counselor, all kinds of things. And I believe right now you're associated with Beyond the Veil Healing. So if I say anything wrong here, Melissa, you can correct
No, that is
that.
correct. Yeah.
But where I met them, where my wife Jules and I met them, was at a Mandy Morris and Oliver Nino class. And we just got to connect. And from that, um, I know Melissa and my wife are good friends, and they're in the program and working with Mandy, and I think you're with Oliver too, and doing their various programs. So they're great people also. If you don't know them, check them out. Mandy Morris and Oliver Nino. But so we had the blessings of meeting them, and I've heard some of their stories. But what's fun about these shows is we get to dive deeper and learn more about these folks, and I look forward to that. And through this, we hope that we share something with you all that touches your heart, that opens it up just a bit more to the divine, to God, to Jesus, to all that is in our lives. So, welcome, Melissa and Chris. You guys just want to say hi?
Hi. Yes. Thank you.
And look, and they're in matching green. They told me they didn't do matchy today,
It's
so
not intentional.
It's for fun.
well, welcome. So, I read in your bio, Melissa, that when you were, I guess the best term to say was you had to grow up quickly.
Yeah.
And so kind of, I wanted you to frame that up. And I know we have a big story with Chris and how that's impacted your family. We'll talk through that. But I wanted you to frame up, at least in those early days, how that has impacted your journey, not just in faith and this healing journey that you've been on, um, in your family life, just in your life in general. I want you to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, I grew up, going to church every Sunday, every Wednesday night, all of that stuff, and had quite a normal childhood up until I turned 13. And at 13, my whole world got turned upside down. My parents ended up divorcing for circumstances that I'll not share with y'all on that. But in that, my dad decided to leave, that was the best situation. And in that, I was left with just my mom. And she went on a spiral, we'll put it that way. I have an older sister who has some learning disabilities and things like that. And being the middle child, I had to take on being big sister. And then also I had a younger brother. And so with that, I had to take on a lot of responsibilities really, really quick.
Mm.
I was the one that made dinner. I was the emotional support for everybody in the family, for both my mom. Had to commit her to a mental hospital at one point.
Oh.
And so just really had a very unstable childhood at 13 years old. And so when you have to turn around and become an adult overnight, pretty much, you learn a lot about yourself and what you're willing to do and what you can sacrifice. And you also learn a lot about just life in general and your path and where things go. So ended up, my life just again turned completely in a different direction, and even away from God. I mean, my mom
Mm.
didn't take us to church anymore. It was one of those. It was just like, what do you do in that situation? And it was just the complete opposite in every single way that you could imagine. Um, but you know, it really did shape who I am now, and understanding that, through those hardships and through all of those things that I did have to go through, I have now the opportunity to sit in front of people that have gone through similar circumstances at a young age, and then understand that, hey, you can change. And just because you had a rough childhood doesn't mean that that's going to be shaping you to who you are as an adult, but you can actually use those and empower yourself with those circumstances.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of coming through that I wanted to kind of draw it in you a little bit. Like, y- I think all of us have things from our childhood or from even, maybe not just childhood, even adulthood that maybe we were not the most proud of, or we don't understand the journey of, or, there's just all kinds of variables to it. But at the point you are now in your life where you're, obviously we're always growing, but you do shine your light tremendously. I want to honor you for that. I think we have the opportunity to sit back and reflect, right, on our and actually begin to appreciate what God carried us through, the things we learned. So, in looking back at that moment and who you are today, what are some of the things you're grateful for?
All of it. I can say every bit of it. I'm now grateful for. I didn't understand at the time. I was young. I didn't understand what was going on. That frustration. I had so much frustration, but now I look at it and go, okay, every scenario that I was put in, I can have somebody sitting across from me, and I can honestly go, I can understand, and I can help you grow
Mm,
through that and get past that. And that for me, I can't say that there's not anything that I didn't learn from.
tremendous empathy and understanding, and yeah, that's amazing. Well, that's probably what makes you a great counselor and even healer.
Yeah.
Empowered by chaos.
Inspired by chaos. I love it. Yeah, that's great, Chris.
Yeah.
So I know, the next big story that I do know because you shared with us in Sedona when we were with you at Mandy and Oliver's class is Chris's journey, right? So I've seen the pictures of you. You guys are a beautiful couple, and you're going along, and then whammy, right? So I want to hear a little bit about maybe this is you, Chris, about your story, what you experienced, and then I want to kind of hear from both of you about. Um, I think it's important for folks to hear because we all, maybe not face challenges as severe as what you faced, but um, yeah, just the challenges that you faced, and then we'll kind of get into the miracle part of it. So anyway, Chris,
Well,
you're up.
set the stage a little bit. In My dad had battled this super rare kidney disease throughout his entire life, and in August of 2018, he had a kidney transplant. Finally,
Mm,
ironically, my parents started dating at 16. My mom was a match and donated the kidney. And after the kidney transplant, he felt great. It's the best he had felt. I mean, this weight lifted off of him. That you just don't realize it's there till it's gone. It's the happiest I'd ever seen him, just because he felt great. Not that he wasn't happy, but he just felt great. And that lasted till February of 2019, and he wasn't feeling well, and he went in, and because of the immunosuppressants, so the body wouldn't reject the kidney, small cell lung cancer had taken over and eradicated everything. So they're like, you got about 6 or 7 months to live. And so as we're kind of dealing with that, I noticed some hearing loss and went in to get it checked. And long story short, had an MRI and had a golf ball size brain tumor that was pushing my brainstem over and crushing my inner ear canal, which is what's hence the hearing loss. But I got that diagnosis on my dad's last birthday.
Mm.
So as that was in June, and then we had the surgery was in July, and so it was, obviously that's a humbling experience to go. My dad's on limited time, and he may outlive me.
Mm.
And I just prayed for his sake that wasn't the case. I don't think any parent should ever outlive their child.
Yeah.
But as you sit back in it, and if you really get down to it, when everything is 100% out of your control, it's kind of almost a little bit. I don't know if it's spiritual. It's lighter, because once it's out of your control, you're just like, there's nothing I can do about it. I've done everything I can. I've prepared. I felt fairly decent as a husband, that if I didn't make it out of it, that my wife and kids would be taken care of. And then if I came through and just was useless on the other side, that was also kind of taken care of. And so I had a I don't know, it was a weird peace. I don't really, I may have been, go through times where you're just think about it too much, but overall I didn't really I was like, I'm either gonna come through it or not. That's just the way it is, so why worry
Yeah.
about that? And I think because of my dad's situation, that I was so focused on whatever I can squeeze out of between the diagnosis and the surgery, just in case, and then that way everything else would be just kind of bonus. And so being able to just give that to our most high God, and let that just be in his hands, and know that whatever's going to happen is going to take place and endure. Now
Wow.
if you really want to talk about when I really started to have concerns, was after the surgery. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I don't know about this.
He had some complications after surgery that
Was,
kind of.
Yeah. Well, we'll go get to that. Let's talk about one thing though, because other than wow, it just had to be really, you would think, intense, but then there's this space where you find this peace, as you said, right?
yeah.
So I just kind of reflecting on it now. If you look back on it now, was there something in your childhood that gave you peace? Was it just your faith, or was there something else that you gave you that sense of calmness?
You know, I mean, the peace with the Lord, but my dad, my dad, one of the things that kind of got me through day to day was a simple statement that he made to me when I was in college. And you go to work and you're young, and you feel like people are being mean to you and not treating you fair, and you go and complain about it or whatever. He said, "Look, man, anybody can be replaced with the 2-inch ad. You're not that great. That place was around before you got there. It'll be around after you're gone." And if you think about that, we're in a temporary situation in this world. And so it's, I don't know. I just think that I felt like I had been a decent person. I had accomplished a lot, had a great family. It's like I felt like I'd lived the American dream. And I'm like, if this is all what I got squeezed out of it, I think I maximized my life at that point, if that makes any sense.
Wow.
And so that was like, there's no apex beyond where I'm sitting right now.
Yeah.
Because the stuff is just stuff, but the family and the relationships and you know I guess just the faith and whatnot is just sometimes you can really find some peace in some of the weirdest, most worst situations because you in that moment you don't really have any other option. Well, I guess you do. I guess you could wallow in it, but if you can just look around and go, what am I grateful for? You'll find the peace. And so I had so much to be grateful for, and so I just focused on that because I didn't want to be if it was a that limited time offer and I didn't have that much time to go, I didn't want to not kind of soak in everything that was around me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we obviously got more to get to there, but then I also want to hear, Melissa, maybe you weren't as calm and peaceful during that time.
Well, you made the comment that I've worn a lot of hats, and as far as careers and stuff, and I do a lot of things. And the part that was calming for me is, again, we can look at our path and the where God put us throughout our life. And I had a privilege of working in surgery, and so I actually assisted in reconstructive surgeries after tumors and things like that.
Wow. Okay.
And so when we walked into the doctor's office, and he said, "Well, you're the 1 in 100 that has a brain tumor." And I was like, "Okay." And I said, "Well, we did the MRI. May I look at it?"
One in 300,000.
Okay. Anyway,
1 in 300,000.
yeah,
That's a little, yeah.
Doesn't
yeah,
really,
yeah,
plus or minus.
yeah. So, so I said, "Well, can I take a look at the MRI?" Him not knowing any of my background, he thought I'm the wife. I work for him, nothing. And so I looked at that and instantly knew what it was, and knew the size of it was. And I said, "Well, that's not a small tumor." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to refer you to this guy. He just moved to y'all's area. He's great. Da 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 da." And I was like, "Okay, great. Can I take a picture of that?" And I knew who to call. It was like God just said, "Hey, this is who you call. Don't even think twice." And I called one of the doctors
Mm.
I worked for, and I said, "If this was your wife, what would you do?" And he goes, "You only go to this person. I'm calling him now." He got in with him within a week of us doing that, and then had a team of surgeons. It was a very long surgery. And so for me, the tumor part was not the issue. Him leaving us was kind of like, "Hey, wait a second here."
Yeah,
That,
that probably gave me some peace too because it was like handing a brilliant child a Rubik's cube. She just starts. I'm like, all right, cool, man. I'll be taken care of.
but and so for me, with my medical background, that part that didn't worry me. Him, the kids, that was the part for me. Him and the kids not having that relationship, and them not in something happening to him, and then they have then lost a dad,
Mm.
and having that part for me, losing him as a spouse and having my partner, and then of course running a business that I really didn't have any idea what I was doing. I used to work in surgery. How do I know anything about running a business? So it was more of that surface level stuff that was more of that, except for the relationship with the kids and myself and us losing that. And but you just kind of go, "All right, well, what are we going to do with this one?" And it's one of those things. Again, I think that going through the things that you go through in life, sometimes you go, "All right, this is just another hurdle that we get to go over together, and we're going to either make it's going to either make us stronger or it's going to break us, one of the two. Which one are we going to allow that to happen?"
One of the things that as you were talking, just totally resonated with me was we experienced trauma and losing our granddaughter 5 years ago now.
Right.
And it was a twin pregnancy. And we lost her at 32 weeks, lost one and got one, so it was,
Right.
and, but I prayed on that, and uh, it was just like I became aware of every God sign, that was given me and to carry us through that, obviously, trauma. And you were just talking like the God signs, right? Like you had this expertise, and you knew a doctor, and they're like, this is where you go to, right? It was, so talk a little bit about that. There had to be some other aha moments, even if you think back on it, like, wow, God had got his hand in that, you know.
It's really interesting because if you would have in that moment, I didn't even think about all of the background of all my. It was just that automatic. I know what to do. It's just I know how to handle this.
Yeah.
I don't know why I know how to handle it, and then it's when you finally everything gets calm after the storm, and you can sit back and you go, oh, now I can see that puzzle piece. Oh,
Yeah.
that fit right there, and this puzzle piece fit right here. And you start seeing that bigger picture that has all been laid out for us. That we just
Well,
it just kind of starts coming together.
yeah, as we're sitting here talking, my dad passed about 6 weeks after my surgery, and since he was pretty much, he was, he didn't have any energy to move around, so he was just idle and sleeping a lot. And when I came home from the hospital, they lived right around the corner, and so I would just go down and sit in a chair, and he was on the couch, and we just spent hours together pretty much every day for that last 6 weeks. And so the blessing of going through that slowed me down enough to be able to spend those last moments with my dad.
Yeah, that's special. That's special. Well, not that we want to get brain tumors to do that,
No, no,
or have our dad pass, but
but
that is
I mean,
special.
if you're high octane, sometimes you need something big to slow you down.
Especially with his personality of running a business and worried about the business. At that point, he didn't care about the business. He cared about spending time with dad, and it slowed him down.
And then the flip side of, I had a lot of recovery to do. So about the time he passed, I was in the mode of not doing much, but having to do something to kind of recover. And again, since my mom lived right around the corner, she came up. Mel was commuting and doing the work thing, and she would come up and do my rehab stuff with me. And so we got to spend a lot of time we were helping each other. She was taking care of me, I was taking care of her. And so, there's a lot of intertwining of, God's infinite wisdom and his grace upon, again, I think I think I had to go through that because he needed me there and she needed me around in that moment. And so just blessed to have been able to do that.
I want to get to you. You kind of chuckle when you mentioned it. It was like, well, post surgery was worse than. So talk a little bit about that, and then I got something I got for Melissa after you chat on that.
You want to talk about it or you want me to?
Um, you go ahead, and I'll interject if I need to. How's that?
So, um, I since we worked out a lot and did CrossFit and everything else, we just had been educated on rhabdo, and so I came out as soon as they woke me up, leaving the OR to the ICU. They kind of wake you up and go, how you feeling? And I said, I hurt everywhere. I feel like I got the worst case of rhabdo ever. And the nurse was like, you even know what that is? And I'm like, of course, me, I'm, smart aleck. I was like, no, I just made it up. And then passed out.
Yeah, she didn't like that
And then I
comment.
woke up in ICU, and Mel was there, and I was super thirsty. And
It was a bad situation.
but I just hurt. I mean, I hurt every single muscle in my body hurt. And I mean, I've crashed motorcycles. I mean, I've played football the whole thing. I mean, I've never hurt that bad. My entire body hurt, and I had a really bad case of rhabdo, and I kept telling her, and she ended up, you know,
I said, I,
saying something to the head.
I
Well,
see.
tell me what rhabdo is.
This is where your muscle tissues break. When you work out, you break your muscle tissues down. They
Yeah.
rebuild, break down, rebuild. But when you break them down beyond a certain threshold, they just break down to the point and dump massive amounts of toxins into your bloodstream.
And when that happens, it shuts down the kidneys immediately.
Ooh.
So I was standing there. The the anesthesiologist is like, hey, we don't know what's going on. We think it may be a reaction to the anesthesia because it was a fairly new anesthesia. Everybody's heard of fentanyl. This is fentanyl. It's a shorter acting drug that basically they can wake your brain up every 7 minutes to see, so that they can see, is he able to swallow? Is he able to do that? So it was fairly new. Now that he's probably one of the biggest case studies out there now because, but so the ICU doctor's like, I don't know what's going on. And then he looked at me, he goes, I think I've got rhabdo. And I kind of did my assessment. I was like, I don't know that that's not correct, so I asked the ICU doctor to run a special test that I know that they can run. And I said, can we run that? Within 5 minutes of them running it, and I'm not kidding you, 5 minutes, they had multiple IV bags, and he wasn't going to die from the brain tumor. It was going to be because of his kidneys shutting down, and
Wow.
that was why he actually took longer to recover.
In ICU for 6 days because of high blood pressure and them flushing out my system, not from actually the brain surgery, but the side effects of the anesthesia.
Wow.
And so I went for 2 years before I started having any physical relief. My muscles in my body, every muscle in my body throughout my entire body hurt nonstop for 2 years. And it was not a good place to be when you hurt everywhere and you have no relief from it. It makes you grumpy. Your brain's rewiring. You can't really do things that you thought you could do. You're fighting your balance. You hurt. I had facial paralysis. I still have facial paralysis. I can't blink my left eye. I had to tape it shut at night, and trying to eat and with the whole left side of your face just non-active. It was just a lot of stuff to still, and then to go through and just to be in constant pain all the time. On top of that, it's just like a great cherry on top,
Well, and then have your dad pass away.
Yeah, in the midst of all that.
In the midst of everything. So it was
just a perfect storm. Literal perfect storm of just
chaos.
Everything.
So, I'll ask Melissa first, and then I'll ask you, Chris, because clearly, other than, most people probably would just throw up their hands and give up. There's some glory to that, like you said, Chris, right? Sometimes when you can't do anything about it, you can let go and God finds his way in. But through all of this, what do you think, Melissa, are the gifts? I mean, the biggest changes in your husband that you're so grateful for, after he's been run through the grinder, if you will, forced to be knocked down, maybe, so he doesn't have to go anywhere. And
Yeah.
getting outside of the fact that you probably had to run the business for that time, which was stressful. But now looking back on it,
let's see. There's so many now looking back at it. If you would have told me during that time, I was ready to pull my hair out and kind of going, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? But honestly, for both of us, it was such a growth time for us and in our relationship, and it actually helped us to bond even more so, and to learn to communicate differently, to learn how to be still and silent, because when you're young parents and you're running after kids all the time, because that was up until then. I mean, we had our youngest was in senior in high school when all of this was going on. So we've been running after 4 children, nonstop, running businesses, we're doing all that. And so it was like, that constant chaos. Again, we bring that word keeps coming up tonight. So that's actually interesting. But then just kind of being able to sit and be still and just kind of really reconnect and it was communicating with one another. Even in silence, we could communicate a lot. Understanding his frustration for me was really big, because there was so much going on emotionally for him. And honestly, that helped me to dive deeper into how can I help him? Not that I wanted to fix him, because it wasn't my place to fix him. It was, I wanted to help. And it really awakened another side for me of how I could help him to grow into this new person that he had to be, with new body, pretty much for him. Readjusting all of it and seeing him go through it, and now, especially now, is seeing his faith grow even that much more, and seeing his relationships look completely different than they've ever looked before. Um, it's truly out of love and compassion and grace, and just it's just different in a great way.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I imagine more grace, more peace, more compassion, all those things that are beautiful Jesus gives us. So Chris, you're in the midst of all this, right? Like you're not seeing the gifts yet.
They're
Yeah.
right in front of me. I'm just having a hard time,
Yeah.
that process.
2 years of pain and were you back in the business at this point? I mean,
Yeah.
um,
I had honestly, I was back in it within 3 months
Somewhat,
on
yeah.
on a basis, and 6 months pretty regularly, and I had to sleep a lot. I mean, I was sleeping at least 12 hours a day, and so we at the time we were commuting about an hour and a half to work and an hour and a half home, and we actually knuckled down and just rented an apartment for 16 months. That was right around the corner. I was like, I gotta, if I'm gonna work, I can't just work and sleep and be in the car,
Yeah.
because at some point I gotta have a rest and I gotta start doing some physical activity, but I still need to do my thing. So and that helped out a lot. And also when we did that, it was just us, and so that was we hadn't ever had just us
Yeah.
in the process, and so that was unique and bonding. And like she said, just when the neurologist, the neurosurgeon, he was just always fascinated about how optimistic I was when I went in, and he's like, man, I've never seen anybody that just was like, this is totally fine, and and I said, well, if I am a pretty optimistic guy, but if I'm being honest, if my wife had left because of the chaos of the surgery and I had lost my job and I didn't have any money, I said, I don't know that I would be
as
quite
optimistic.
as optimistic, happy-go-lucky about it. I would love to think I would be, but you don't know until you're faced with that. But if you, I don't, as a man, and you get married, and you know that you married the right person, but I'm gonna tell you, you want to talk about the exclamation point of it, going through that with your wife, and just being through that, and there's nothing there was nothing I would not do for this woman, but there's definitely nothing I wouldn't do for this woman. I mean, just she's been amazing, and so getting, you get a different perspective on really everything, you know, because it's all bonus. I mean, every day I wake up is a bonus day for me, so I just look at it as that and go try to, start my day off with just praying that, hey, I just hope I can go and shine God's light through my daily activity, and that some people would come to know Jesus because they're like, I just want some of what he's got, and then it starts up a conversation. I want to be a magnet, and I just want to go throughout my day and try to do things, whether it's make the bed or put some laundry away or do the dishes or say hi to someone. I just want to glorify God in the small things. And it's just been such a blessing to do that in the little things, and then man, you take care of the little things, and it's amazing how the big things just kind of start falling in line.
So I got a question, two questions for you. One is during that period, what are a couple of things that you learned about yourself? There were kind of new revelations. That's your first question. And you can wrap it in with, you're expressing this love and appreciation for your wife. But what is maybe one or two things in that period that you learned about Melissa that before that time didn't come to light?
Well, I mean, I learned going through this. I'm pretty hardcore, man. I'm a pretty durable individual. um, and
Stubborn. Yeah.
And I learned through her she's got a lot of grace and patience because it wasn't easy. And that is, I can't tell you how beautiful that is. Just seeing someone be able to just. There were times just knew she was just like, I just want to hold a pillow over his face because I can't handle it right now. But she didn't, and so that's beautiful. But just she has just, I mean, you know her, you met her, you saw her interact with everybody at that event, and it's just I when people hijack her, I mean, I don't know that I saw her the whole time we were there because it's all day, and people were, hey, I need to talk to her, and I was just talking to whoever, and then we go back to the hotel room and I'm tired, I gotta go to bed, and the next day repeat, and it just makes me happy to just watch. It's just it's beautiful to see just people gravitate, and when she smiles, she lights up a room, and for a guy that can't blink, it's a little blinding every once in a while.
Got his good sense of humor. Oh,
Yeah.
Melissa, since he cheated, he's too humble to talk about himself. I
Yeah.
want you to tell him, where, you already said he changed, right, with all these things, but maybe pick one or two traits as a husband that you were like, wow, I just didn't know that about him. And then he's already given you all the glory, but you can maybe say one or two things about you.
I know. I'm sitting here going, okay, wait. This story's not about me. It's about him.
That's not us. It's a team effort.
It is.
Go
Yeah.
team. Team Green right here.
Yeah.
Team Green,
Yeah. Don't let him start on the dad jokes.
yeah.
That's definitely something that's gotten worse since all of this. Is he
It
takes
just
dad
flows
jokes.
through me. I can't.
He really can't. No, honestly, I would say his resilience, because not many people could have gone through what he did with the grace, the compassion, and come out grateful for what had happened. Again, the surgeries that he's gone through were horrendous, and just physically demanding. And to him, and for me, honestly, his relationship with God, that's probably one of the most beautiful things that came out of this. Understanding that even that he did have a relationship with God before all of this, but his relationship now is completely different. It has reshaped him in so many ways. And again, seeing that side of it is he is, again, he's very humble about the whole experience. He's like, oh yeah, it was nothing, it was a brain tumor. And I'm like, oh no. It wasn't just a brain tumor. I think he slept through all of the chaos almost, because he comes out, it's so great and it's wonderful, and brain tumor is nothing. And I'm like, wait, where were you? Because I remember it different.
Honestly, I thought, I really, at the time, I really thought I had a good relationship with God, and I'm not gonna say I didn't, but it's just so much more intimate now that it's just like, what was I doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's so beautiful now. And, I mean, I guess, the resiliency component, I mean, I didn't let it take me down. I mean, I got up and I made things happen that people were just kind of blown away by. And, I made sure that I was taking care of my dad as best I could until his passing. I took care of my mom as best I could, and kept the business going, and just it wasn't all about me, and so just being really just like, it's okay. The things that were on my shoulders before are still there. I can still carry them. Even I carry them with a limp, but I still get it done. So I just wasn't gonna let that. Bad stuff that happens to all of us, and really you don't figure out what you're all about till you figure out how you handle the bad stuff. Not if you just let it take you down, and I just refuse to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I would have to go back to is that he is a different person now than what he was before. There is a softer side to him than ever before. There is again, I think grace is a big one, that he shows more grace for others now than ever before because of the things that he went through. But it was not as easy as he puts it off as to be, because there was a lot of emotions.
I
And
never said it was easy. It just, you know,
well, of course not. But it's all about, he did look at it in a positive thing, but there was still those dark days. There were still some of those days that you're just like, I don't want to put one foot in front of the other. And that's when he would actually, and because of that is when he did lean on God more. And seeing that, and I think because of all of those little things that he had to go through, and even the emotional part, losing his dad during that time, he didn't even compute that completely until almost 2 years later, because and then that's when it hit him. And so when he was recovering, he didn't get to grieve, and so that grieving process did take longer and whatnot. And so um,
Mm.
that I think that all of that impacts you in so many ways.
So I want to jump into one other little area, and then I always say as we're landing the plane, I like to get into practical things. So this is always where I get to throw you guys a curveball because you'd be like, "Oh, I didn't plan it."
Yeah.
Nothing's planned here, guys. So they'll have to come up with it. But I usually like folks to take away, and since I got two of you, I get six of them. So like three practical things that you can apply to your day-to-day life that you know, you do that can help folks. But one thing I noticed when you go through like a big, you went through major, right? You went through like forged in the fire, as they say, So you two went through that big journey, and Chris, you with, you were the one carrying that tumor and having to deal with all the recovery and everything. But I wanted to ask you, generally, what I found is that after that big event, drama, I remember when I went through mine, I called it the drama queen. When I went through my big thing, um, the things in life after that were not super dramatic meant so much more to me, right? And so I want you to talk about that a little bit. Like, yeah, you have this beautiful business, you have this beautiful relationship, you're two lighted beings, but it's like, what in your days do you notice now maybe that you didn't notice before?
well, I mean, this is pretty easy for me. I mean, all of it. You know, three things. Like there's a curveball of three things. That's easy. Wake up and have a conversation with God and be grateful. Start your day being grateful because they're all, like I said, they're all bonus days for me. So I have gratitude just for the day. I have, and I've been giving this advice to anybody that will listen, is that when something is, I guess what the big word now is, triggering you. I never heard that till recently, but
Yeah,
when
Sandy,
something's,
yeah.
yeah, when something is triggering you, take a moment and just start listing things that you're grateful for. And then when you get done with it, with your list, then reevaluate whatever it was that was bothering you and see if it even still is bothering you anymore. And if it is, you're doing it with a different mindset. You're doing, you're going, okay, what can I learn from this, and what, and mixing in the gratitude. But most of the time, it's like I was just complaining in my head to complain. So now that I realized I'm grateful, I don't need to complain anymore.
Yeah.
And then and for me is just trying to stay focused. Like I really try to stay as focused as possible, and it really kind of lets you see more of what's going on in the world when you try to go throughout your day and your only goal is to glorify God in your actions.
Mm.
So you can accomplish so much. I mean, you're running a business, but if your interaction with your customers, or interaction with your employees, or interaction with your anybody, or if you're run through numbers or whatever, if you're doing it to try to glorify God, you're doing it at such a high level that it's going to take care of itself. I mean, I hang my clothes up, and I make sure that they're in a more organized fashion. I mean, it's just, what I mean, like it's just little things. It's like there's no, when it's a bonus day, why would you want to waste any of it by doing something that's not at a high level
Mm.
and with gratitude? And so it's just and then the other thing is really truly understanding the difference between happiness and joy, because you don't have to be happy to have joy. You can be in struggle and be joyful. Happiness is kind of a bonus, but it's not nearly as important as joy. And so when things are not going well and you show gratitude and you're grateful for something, you can have joy in that moment and take the things that you learn and run with it. What can I learn in this opportunity? And if you really think about the history of the world, there is nothing that is, when people go and see things or experience things that are awe moments, like just absolutely amazing. None of that stuff was created by somebody who had everything go perfect in their life and then never had any, because at that point there's no incentive to get up and dust everything off and do better. There's no growth with everything being easy. So just being able to go, man, the more stuff going on is the more opportunity for growth. And we're growing beings, and God created us to grow and to produce and to create and to, if we can't show others grace, like what He showed us, then, what's the point,
Amen. Amen. So you mentioned one thing that I also share also. I love the be grateful or think of things that you're grateful for to kind of offset the emotion. And I know that word trigger, that's Mandy, we've learned that through Mandy, right? Julie
Yeah.
uses that all the time. I I I used to say, and I still say the same kind of thing. When you feel an emotion, and this can be a negative emotion or a positive emotion, it's important in that moment to be grateful to God for that emotion. Because I would say, even if it's a negative emotion, it's something that is you care about. Like it could be somebody else's feelings, or you could have a negative emotion, Chris, because some customer is unhappy with the way our window or door is installed, or there's something happened on the job, that wasn't in alignment, and you experience that emotion. But if you don't have that emotion, then you can't do something about it, right? So that's that gratitude piece I think is brilliant. So I love that you reflected that to me.
And also, even when stuff's really bad, it kind of balances out, right? So if this is really bad and it's way up here, well, when you add gratitude, you can balance it out and go, well, it is bad, but I also have good, and so there's balance, and so
Yeah,
I
I love
can
that.
kind of
Yeah.
handle both.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that's kind of build up your gratitude bucket so you can
Yeah,
offset the
always
emotion
balancing
every
out the
time.
scale.
Yeah. All right, Melissa, it's your turn, huh?
Ah,
No pressure.
yeah, no pressure. I mean, he said it enough
Oh,
that
you got to come up with all new stuff now.
yeah, I know. It's like, let me think about this. Honestly, for me, I think that I look at situations differently. And again, I'm gonna do a shout out to Mandy and even your wife, because she's absolutely amazing. We've gotten to work together a few times, and it's just understanding that everybody's going through stuff in their lives, and we can on just like whenever everybody looked at both of Chris and I, and they're like, I had no idea y'all were going through all of that stuff, because the way you handled it. And then deep down, it would have been nice for somebody to just kind of go and, can I just give you a hug? And so understanding on a daily basis that wherever you go, people are going through stuff. It doesn't matter what it is, but people have things going on, and they're not going to show it on the surface, but deep down, they're hurting. Um, and that we need that. We need to make sure that we connect to those people and have that of reaching out, giving them a smile, giving them a hug, just saying, I love you. It's as simple as that. And I think that that's probably what both of us is just life. We've all made life so just ridiculously complicated, and it's honestly pretty easy. Is just is be kind, love one another, and be there to support one another through whatever it is. Because you know what, nobody knows my background, nobody knows his background or yours, but if we could just kind of go in, you know what, I may not understand what you're going through, but I can be here for you. And
Yeah.
just so really just understanding people differently than we've ever have before, and actually living out of love and not fear. One of the things that has really come through for me is that really God gave us two feelings. He gave us love and fear. You know, are we going to do things out of love, or are we going to do things out of fear? Because as a kids, we're taught, you know, from school age on up, you know, fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of losing your money, losing your house, whatever that may be. It's all fear-based emotions. And if we can shift that to be, am I doing this out of love and compassion and joy and, you know, peace and all of that stuff? It's a whole different way to live on this planet right now, especially right now. You know, it gives you that sense of freedom. That's the word actually for me. It gives you this beautiful sense of freedom that we can have in your life and just go through life and just look at everything differently.
Amen. Yeah, I think that the love your neighbor as you love thyself. I always say, out of the Bible, I say love your neighbor as God loves them, which is unconditionally as their child.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you can live life that way, well, I'll tell you both that you're doing that.
Thank you.
You can see your light, and you're spreading that love, and whether that's in running a business with windows and doors, or counseling people, or healing people, wherever you do it's perfect, right? And bless you both for that. Bless you both for being on this show, and maybe, hopefully, somebody listening to the show that might be going through some challenges. And we don't need to rank our challenges, right? Not one's worse than the other. You're going through it. You're going through it.
It is real to you, and it is heavy to you, and it doesn't really matter what everybody else is going through, because what's on you is on you, and that is it's a big deal. I mean, it doesn't a minor wound is a wound, and nobody really knows what the level of the minor or major is. It's all major unless you deal with it.
Thank you, Chris. And I think if you two, and folks out there can feel their love, and hopefully you can feel my love for you, and that can get you through this moment to the next moment, and you can give it to God, because we promise you God loves you and God's there for you. So I'm so grateful to have Melissa and Chris on the show, and I just wanted to add and mention that you can find more out about Melissa at Beyond the Veil Healing. It's btvhealing.org/M Pollard, Pollard. You can also look up Clarity Windows and Doors. They're a well-established business in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Amazing reputation. So if you're in that area, please check them out. And then I also mentioned Mandy Morris and Oliver Nino in the show. And again, all these links will be under the show description. But you can find Mandy Morris at mandymorris.love, just as it sounds, MANDY, Morris, MORRIS.love. And Oliver Nino is also known as the Spiritual Activator. And you can just check him out on Amazon, Oliver, Oliver, and Nino, Nino. And he's got quite a few books out there. Spiritual Activator, and several others. That he just recently had a New York Times bestseller called Do This Before Bed. So amazing people. Really blessed that we got to meet Melissa and Chris. And I also, love to wrap us up on prayer for the show, specifically for those of you who are facing challenges. So, Heavenly Father, open up our hearts, our minds, our beings, our eyes and our ears to all that is you, in your healing power, Lord. And let us have the faith and strength to allow you to do your work within us, and all the blessings that you've done for all of us out there, especially the inspiration that Melissa and Chris's story has given us today. And Just thank you, Lord, for your blessings. And please touch the hearts of those listening that need you most in this moment. With all of your love, all of our love, in the name of Jesus Christ, your Son, and in the Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And I'm just blessed to be here with you today. And I'm so glad you stuck with the show. Thank you.